Hi everyone, Catherine Cassidy, CEO of You Styled, and I am so excited to welcome Beverly Hallberg of District Media Group to the Leadership Style Power podcast video series. It's a mouthful.
That's a lot to say.
We're going to have to work on that, I think. But I'm so happy to have you here, Beverly, to share your journey of how you've evolved as a leader, how you've built your business, to inspire women out there to see how they can do it too, how you can do it too. So let's get right into it. Tell me about what you're doing right now with District Media Group, and then I want to go into how you got there.
Sure. So District Media Group is a communications firm based in DC, but we do work across the country. And essentially what we focus on most is preparing people for media interviews. So someone's going on CNN or someone is going on Fox. This could be a candidate, a member of Congress, a spokesperson for an organization. What we do is we do mock interviews with them. We bring a whole camera kit. We time their answers. We help them on their messaging, things like dealing with tough questions and the ever scary how to handle the camera that's looking at you. So what do you do with your hands and your facial expressions, etc.
That's amazing. So that's what you do now.
Mm-hmm.
You launched it in 2008.
Yes.
A really great time to launch a business, as I well know.
We have that in common, right?
Yes, exactly. But what led you to taking that leap into entrepreneurship and founding District Media Group?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I jokingly tell people, even though it's true, it's just kind of ironic, is I run a business, yet I've never taken a business class in my life, nor did I ever think I was going to run a business. So grew up in California. I thought I would always stay in California. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, so I thought I was going to work for ESPN. So somehow I ended up in DC working mostly in the political scene and owning a small business. So for me, it's just been a journey of what made sense as doors opened up, and that's what led me to where I am.
Oh, I love that. A journey as doors opened up.
Yes.
So maybe walk us through how you walked through that first door. How did you know there was an opportunity you needed to take? Why did you raise your hand, etc.?
Yeah, so I mentioned I didn't plan to come to DC, but I was studying video production, radio and television broadcasting, and someone who had worked for the school that I went to was working in DC, and they needed some people to intern the summer before my senior year. So I thought, why not go to DC? It sounds like fun, sounds like something different. I'd only been once in my life to DC when I was 13 for like 2 days when my family decided to take a vacation here. And so I went up there, really loved what I was doing, and then it turned out that they had a job opening that they wanted me to take part in once I graduated. So I thought, why not go to DC for 2 years? I like the organization, this is great. And so now I am 16 years later still in DC. So a lot of it was I worked mostly as a producer and an editor starting out, which is what my background was in. I did a lot of on-camera work, but the nonprofit organization I worked for did have training seminars. So after a year of being there, not only was I taught, but I started taking over the training. So somebody taught me how to train people, and so I was doing that in addition to working as a producer and editor for the organization. But a real important key for me is I had a boss there who told me, he said, you should freelance. You should do other work. He had made his career doing freelancing before he came to this organization. So I started doing a weekend sports anchor position at the Salem Radio Network news station. My boss hooked me up with other video production companies in the area. So I was doing that in evenings and on weekends. And then 7.5 years into my full-time job, I couldn't balance the two. So it was a tipping point to say, okay, do I start turning away work, or do I have enough side business to actually do this on my own?
Right.
So that was a tipping point for me in starting the business.
And that was in 2008 when you said, okay, let's do
this. I had some savings, not as much money as I had planned on,
right.
But just some certain things kind of took place where it just became clear that it was the right timing, and I decided to jump. And one of the things that was beneficial for me, and I know you and I have talked about this, is we've branched into businesses where you don't have to put much capital out.
Right.
I didn't have to get an office because I work from home. I would go meet with my clients anyway. So when somebody's opening up a restaurant where you have to hire employees right away, where you have to put money out on a building, where you have to do all the refurbishing for the style of the restaurant, that's a bigger investment than I had to take. So the worst thing that would happen is I realized you get another job. At the end of the day, I would just have to find another job if it didn't work.
Yeah, and what I love about what you're sharing with your story is, A, you had the courage to take that first leap of faith to move across the country, leave your family. Because remind me where you went for undergraduate? Was it close to home?
No, I went to a university in South Carolina.
Okay, so it wasn't that big of a leap because you'd already
I'd already made the move.
You'd already done that, at least in college, which is one of the, it's sort of like a baby step because you get to go home for the holidays and whatnot. And that, you know, you were used to the East Coast. So what then, taking it back to the decision to go to school in South Carolina, sorry, I'm projecting Southern California.
Yeah.
Because that, again, that's a big leap of faith to leave, you know, a family that you're close to.
I think it's a variety of things. So first of all, even though I grew up in California, I have a lot of family on the East Coast, and my mom grew up in the South, so she had left. My grandfather moved from state to state. He was actually a church planter, so that was something I would say when I take a look at where all my cousins are now, a lot of us do own our own businesses. So I think that there's just this element of taking risk and change was not something that was explicitly taught, but it was never scary, if that makes sense. So I think that there's just an element of taking chances and experiencing new adventures is just what my family does. And even something somebody said to me recently that I thought was really interesting, and even looking at Americans, is that we're all descendants of people who left. Whenever that they left, we all came here because either us personally, so if you're a recent immigrant, or whether it was your parents or grandparents or great-grandparents, etc., we are the descendants of people who took risks. So I think that alone just instills a mentality that people have to go out there and create something new and try it. But you don't have great reward without great risk, so there's that element.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, having savings, and you did essentially your business started as a side hustle, and it was all incredibly organic, but it was risk that was calculated.
Well, as you know, one of the big things that you take into account, I'm sure you have people who will come up to you and say, well, what do I need to do? I'm thinking about owning my business. It's, well, how hard are you currently working? Because people will often say, oh, you're so lucky you're your own boss. And it's true. I wouldn't be doing it if this wasn't beneficial to me. But sometimes your boss is the worst person in the world because she makes you work all the time.
Absolutely.
So it's, if you don't work, you don't get paid. So you do feel often that you're working all the time. You don't get paid vacation. You don't get paid sick time.
Right.
You don't get retirement. So there are definitely some downsides to it that you have to consider if you want to do it.
I completely agree. I started my business possibly too young. I did not have a safety net. And my friends ask, how did you do it? How did you make that decision? My friends who have jobs that are very secure, they give them actually fairly good creative flexibility, and I always say I did not know. I honestly did not know. However,
that's why you're thankful for being naive in
exactly 100%. However, that I am also grateful for, because not having a safety net meant that I had to really go for it and keep that hustle going and work 7 days a week but love every minute of it versus work 7 days a week, which is what I was doing before, and not necessarily love every minute of it.
Well, I've even thought about how exciting it is to not even know what 6 months is going to bring, what a year is going to bring. And I could be just in exactly the same position, or I could be doing more, doing something different. So there's nothing wrong with working a 9-to-5 job, staying at a job that you like, or at least that pays, if you want to work so that you can live a lifestyle and your work provides that, I think that's fantastic. But there's just an element that I'm always looking for, seeing where I can expand, because that's interesting to me and creative. So it does take, I think, a certain kind of desire that people want. Now, some people would say that I'm sacrificing many things, such as maybe some things in personal life, because I work a lot. So, I mean, it's once again, it's not negative if you don't have this mentality. It's fine to have the opposite. It's just figuring out what's best suited for you.
Well, that's a really key piece to hone in on. That you are really paying attention to what serves you. You're not doing this for the sake of, fame and glory and whatnot, and what lights you up. So you're really paying attention to that. So I think that's what, we want to highlight here for you, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. And the fact that you were willing to go through those doors and again, pay attention to, this is an interesting opportunity. And I think I'll go for it. And that takes, again, courage.
Oh, thank you.
So
same for you.
Well, I think courage and conviction is a really big part of why what we're seeing right now with women rising up and really starting to speak up. It takes that to raise your hand. You have to really, truly believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And this is why the Leadership Style Power series exists, is to highlight these different elements of leadership style power, courage and conviction being one of them, or two of them. They kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But, it's what I love about your story is that you are just intuitively following, what will serve you and what you want to do. And yes, we do make personal sacrifices sometimes in our life, but my point of view, maybe you agree, is that it all works out in the end. If you're following your intuition, then it's all working out in your best interest, even if it's...
And even a side of that, I'm sure you've experienced this because every small business does, you have to let yourself fail. Because not everything is going to pan out. So even though, I've had some successes in X area, I've also been doing this since 2008. Not everything has panned out. So recognizing, and this is something that is hard for me because I am a perfectionist, but realizing that failures aren't, like if failure in one area is something that puts you over the edge, you really aren't suited for this. So being able to take a failure and say, okay, what did I learn? And sometimes that's just not where my talents are, and that's okay.
Right. Absolutely.
So now let me refocus. Let me go to this area. So it's also what I would call following the market and what the market has. So even though I worked as a producer and editor, I left all of that for training because there weren't many media trainers. There are lots of producers. I enjoyed both, but that was just the one that made sense. So part of it is having that intuition, seeing what's out there, trying some things, nope, that didn't work, backing up and trying again. And I would say for women, of course, I'm making a broad generalization here, is that, and I even struggle with this, is sometimes being fearful to do things because I feel like I don't have it all together in that one area yet. Like, oh, well, I still want to lose some weight, or, fill in the blank, I still need to learn the skill set a little bit better. But I have found that men don't tend to struggle with that as much as women do. And so telling ourselves, even if you don't feel it, to fake it till you make it. And of course, we've all heard that phrase before. But if it feels uncomfortable, you're probably at least pushing yourself in a direction of growth. And that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Growth is just outside your comfort zone. I guess.
Yeah.
And it's the art of the pivot. And I think that is something that is a life skill that you only learn through experience, and that acceptance of failure, because if you keep going, then it's just feedback.
Yeah.
It's you're okay, that didn't quite work, cool, like that's good to know, I'm not going to invest any more time or money there. And then that opens up an opportunity. My boutique box came from the fact that I wasn't getting people to sign on for personal shopping, and I'm like, this is the whole point, this is the value.
Yeah.
But I knew that the cost was the prohibitive piece there. So how can we make it work? And all of a sudden, business expanded. So the art of the pivot, the courage, the confidence, being okay with failure and not being perfect, which is actually a really nice segue considering you are a media trainer.
Yeah.
I'm going through this myself, this feeling of, if you're going to be on camera, you need to look and be perfect. Your hair needs to be perfect, your makeup, your skin, your weight, etc. I don't know, how do you help clients move through that when I know it's confidence ultimately is what you're trying to cultivate and create, but like you say, you have to fake it till you make it. Are there any techniques or?
Well, I think that we can look to, this is gonna kind of be old school, but look to Oprah as far as this goes, in that she was someone who came on the scene where you didn't have many African Americans in media, not many females, and she's never been the model shape. And yet people loved her. Look at what she did. So you can even take some networks. I actually think CNN and MSNBC are really good about this, which is having women on who, variety of age ranges, variety of weights, variety of racial backgrounds. And so I think even looking at that and saying there's a difference between being put together and feeling like you have to be perfect. Because if people like who you are, if you're conversational, if your personality shines through, they want you back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you and I have this pressure of we're teaching people how to present themselves. So you're probably always thinking about what you wear. And I'm always thinking about, well, are my hand gestures working? Am I delivering in the way that I coach people to? But I also know that if we don't put ourselves out there, I mean, we also have to show that we can practice what we preach. It does have that added level, but we're always going to be our harshest critics.
Absolutely.
And so part of it is realizing we'll never achieve perfection. Now, maybe we need to improve ourselves in certain ways, and that's fine. But not letting that prevent us from doing something.
I love that. Please, just do it.
Just do it. And no, we don't get paid by Nike, but it's a very good slogan.
It's the reason why the slogan works.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or, we could go to the Martin Luther King Jr. quote of you just have to take that first step in faith. And, I'll put the quote below so I don't totally butcher it right now. But, life is a marathon, and just take that first step forward, and, maybe you lose your footing just a little bit, but you can rebalance yourself fairly quickly. So, speaking of balance,
this is not a good question for me.
I kind of hate this question of the work-life balance piece of it. Do you think that that's even something that matters as far as, should we be talking about it or should we let go?
Well, I think it's a combination. So for me, fortunately, I work with a lot of my friends. So there is just a social element where I have that through work, and I love what I do. I love the people who even work with my company. So we're all friends. So my situation may be a little bit different than someone else, but I think you have to ask yourself, when do you feel unbalanced? Because everybody feels unbalanced in different ways. And knowing in many ways you're never going to have it all. So I think for some people, it's you want to have a family. But if you have a family and you're working, you probably are going to feel stressed. So it's figuring out, do I want to get the nanny? Do I want to do part-time? For everybody, that balance is different. I don't think that we should get into this mentality of you can have it all, because you can't. I think we go through different seasons in life. So I don't have children right now, so I am able to devote more to my business. I think I would want to back off if I did have kids. I did get a dog, so there's been a little bit more time at home with a baby English bulldog. So that's bringing a different side that I'm trying to balance. But I think it's important to figure out outside of work, what are those things that are important to you, and to try to fit that in. And sometimes you just go through seasons where you're just really busy, you have to cut some things out, and you just need to pick them back up again when you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. And not to totally segue, but I do want to move into some questions around just really focusing on leadership, since we are talking about leadership, style power. How do you see yourself as a leader?
That is a good question. I probably don't really see myself as one. It's not something that I think about. I always find it interesting that and this is probably a negative thing because probably a lot of people do read leadership books. I'm not a big fan of leadership books in that I think you either understand how to lead people or you don't. So am I a leader, or what are the leadership skills? I would say in managing a team, because that's been more recent where I've brought people on, is always making sure they're okay and checking in with them. We all work from different locations, so you can feel very disjointed. But part of being a leader is being willing to do any work that you task them with yourself or that you have done, and also making sure that there's enough time in their day to do it. And if not, how do we need to rearrange it? A lot about leadership is communication.
I would agree. Absolutely. I think it's interesting that you are a leader, yet that's just not how you identify yourself.
I would never identify myself as that. Yeah, it's part of it too is that I work with so many large organizations where they have a clear leadership structure, and so for so long it was just me coming in and helping people. So I just don't think of that in those terms. In some ways maybe I should, but I think, how would I say it? Like, I don't do what I do to become a definition.
Right.
And not that that's what you're implying.
Right.
So I don't even really think through what the definition people have of me. I would say what matters to me most is people know that when they hire me, they get a good product. And that's most important, that they're a happy client. So that's what I'm always focused on.
I like that. I can appreciate
Yeah.
that. I think, and what you're saying too is essentially leading by example, and it's making sure that the team is playing well together, which is actually one of the big reasons why I'm a huge believer in women as leaders, because it's not about you being at the top in terms of an infrastructure, but like creating buy-in with your team or with the organization. So maybe that's another conversation we can have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another time. We'll dig deeper into all these things. Final question. How do you continue to invest in yourself, not your business, as you've grown in your career and your leadership?
It's tough. So this would go back to the work-life balance. And one thing that has always been, though, extremely important to me is my faith. So I still am very active in a church. So Sundays are church day. And so having that set aside for me has been really important. On top of, and that's also where volunteer service can come in. And then the other thing is, especially living in DC, we're living in a town where it's very transient, that people come in and out. So I have a core group of friends who have stayed here for a long time, probably will continue to stay here. And when we get together, even though we all kind of work in the same political arena, we don't talk about politics. So the friends that you have where you can go, like I'm a big sports fan too, so I go to a lot of sporting events, music events, where we have interests outside of what our work is. I think that's a way to keep you balanced. Because when we get together, the last thing we really want to talk about is work. So you probably are the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. There are certain days when I'm jazzed to still talk about work. Other days you're like, I just like talk about boys.
Yeah, just want to tune out, talk about something completely different.
Totally, absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us for this inaugural podcast.
I hope I did it justice.
No, I think absolutely. I mean, the whole point of this is that we all are showing up as our highest self and investing in ourselves and continuing to raise our hand in potential. And you are modeling that with your business. And your business has grown crazy over the last 8 years. And I know, as a fellow entrepreneur, that it goes up and down and all around.
Yeah.
And
they're a lot more expensive these days.
Seriously. You're like, as soon as the top line goes up, so does everything underneath.
So does everything else. But it's a good thing. You have to spend money to make money.
Absolutely. That's a good little leadership principle, whether it's developing yourself as a leader or your business. You have to spend money to make money. So I think a lot of women are kind of shy in that respect, in terms of, we put our children first, we put the company first, investing time in yourself, investing a little bit of money in yourself if it's a sporting event, and just spend money to make money. So
and on clothes too, you have to look the part, so that's important.
It's all about how you feel.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, well, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
So, and we will be back soon with your next Leadership Style Power video podcast. Have a wonderful one, and own your style power.